who your mum and dad were, and how they ended up down here, or where they were from originally, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Before I'm ready to start now. Must I introduce myself?
Yeah.
Well, I say this is Mission Niochlás Ó'Griofán. Rugab men Sosarang, because I'm a Winter and so, which means my family been here in Helvick since 1776. And from my mother's side, she was Mary Connery from Leckensilla in English. She was related to the Connerys who went to New South Wales, famed in song and story, as you know. So I've been here in Ring all my life. I never emigrated. I lived in a small farm up in Seaview, and I worked in part-time in Waterford Food for about 20 years, and I retired there about 20 years ago. I said, man, I have my leisure since. I said, taking it easy since. Yeah.
And when you were small,
Yeah.
Would you remember going into Dungarvan much?
Oh, I certainly would. Why wouldn't I? Sure, it was the nearest town to us. I mean, in them days, every Friday and Monday morning, all the donkeys and carts from Ballinagall would go into Dungarvan to the market, especially on a Friday. You'd see all the old women in their shawls passing here, and we'd be going to school. So, oh yeah, that'd be no problem to me. I remember that quite well, like, you know.
And what was your, when you went into Dungarvan, what kind of shops would you remember, or what?
Well, they were very plain that time, because there were very few butcher shops there, number one. It was nearly all bacon and half-eggs and all that thing, you know. It wasn't, the modern butcher shops we know them today, you probably get steak all right at Vinnie Morrissey's there in the square. But outside of that, there was no great selection of meat. In them days even there were no sausages. So, you know, I mean, there's often I've seen people here and they'd get a half-head and they'd cut slices out of the half-head to make rashers out of it. You see, because they were, you didn't get rashers at that time. Went to William Foley's in Dungarvan then in the mid-1940s, and that was getting kind of modern. They were doing rashers and they were doing all bacon and all that, you see. So that was the first recollection I have of Dungarvan regards food anyway, like, you know. In them days there were no sliced panners, you know. You know, so we've come a long way since then, I suppose, you know. There was no Wellingtons actually there. We went to school nearly barefoot the most of the time, especially from Patrick's Day on. A lot of the poor children in the parish wouldn't have any boot going to school on them, like, you know. And the roads weren't tarred then. They were rough, they were all potholes and all that thing. I mean, that road there in them days wasn't even tarred then, like, you know. I remember that when it was just an ordinary road. So that's about it, is it?
And then, so when you went into for the fair, you said?
Oh yes, I often walked to the fair in Dungarvan with cattle. They'd be the fair of April was the fair for you to be selling heifers, and the fair, and then the fair of May, you'd have weanlings, they used to call them, and then the fair in October was a big one again, because all the buyers came down from the Midlands. They came as far from County Cavan, and when you had your animals sold inside in the fair, you drove them over to the train, and they were put on the train. They went up to Longford, up to Cavan. All the buyers came down from that side of the country, especially for heifers in the month of April. That was the fair for heifers. So they went all over the country from Dungarvan railway station.
And what time would you set off in the morning with the cattle?
Oh, you'd set off in the morning about it would be 4 o'clock. You'd have to gather them up in the fields, and then you have to walk them into the square in Dungarvan, and not alone the square of Dungarvan the time before the cattle, but they'd be out the All Road, and they'd be out Kilrush at every side, like, you know. You're probably talking about, I'd say you could be talking about 1,000 head of cattle at least. Yeah, and then they did the pigs as well, so it was a big thing. And then when the fair was over that time, you'd see all the urban council fellas, they're coming along with their big brushes and cleaning up the streets. You know, it was, yeah.
And would you say if your father didn't sell?
Yeah, you have to walk him home again and wait for another day. It's as simple as that. Yeah. But most of the small farmers now wouldn't be going to the fair. The small farmers would be we say they're only about 4 cows. That'd be the average, we say, the small farmer. You see, so he'd have four calves then off the cows, you see, and he reared them until October, and the big farmer would buy them. So there wouldn't be too many small farmers going to the market at all. You'd have to be nearly 100 acres or something like that. So the big fellas they'd have the number of cattle, you know.
And come here, when you were small then, what kind of shops would you remember in and around the square in Dungarvan?
Oh, I remember them. There's none of them there now. That's amazing. There's no shop in Dungarvan Square now. When I was there, they're all gone for years, like, you know. I should have had plenty. Paddy Foley's pub and Jimmy Mountains, Fanny Morrissey's the butcher shop, Ormond's the square, Shop on the Corky, and Tom Curtin's. But they're there all the time, kind of all right. But they're the only one are left. All the rest of them are gone. The square has completely changed, you know. Completely changed.
And what was your first job then when you got that job?
The first job, we'd be going around that time, but as you know, I was only small. We were in 20 acres ourselves at home. But the first job you'd get is going around to the farmers, tinning. You'd be tinning turnip and mangles. And that was a tough job because you were down on your knees doing that. And you had bags on your knees. And there'd be thistles and everything on the drills that time because there was no talk of spray or anything then, like. And so there was thistles and you could meet anything when you were tinning turnip down on your knees. It was a job I never liked, I tell you the truth. I was glad the day the hoe came in because I loved tinning with the hoe. But then the beat came in. The beat came in the 1930s before my time, but if you hadn't a machine to set it in, you shouldn't get it. If the big farmer, couldn't get a machine to set it. I knew a farmer here that he set an acre of beet, and he set it with a bucket. He had no machine, and he set it one by one and one like that. But people done extraordinary things like that. You wouldn't believe today that they could do, like, you know. They done it.
And then did you eventually get a job in town then?
No, I worked most of my time at home until about 1960. You see, we had four cows. We used to go to the creamery, and I worked with local farmers and all that around.
Oh, would you have many dealings with the co-op then?
Oh, I would. Sure, I even worked in the co-op later on, like, you know. But you see, we go to the creamery that time. The creamery was an old parish. Now, the creamery was about, I suppose, heading for 4 miles from here. And I often went to the creamery in a donkey and cart, maybe only 10 gallons of milk. And there was farmers went from the top of Helvick over to the creamery in Old Parish, which was about at least 6 miles. There a turn journey of 12. And the milk could be separated in the creamery then, and you'd bring back the skim milk. You'd give that to calves, and all the women would be looking for it for baking. It was great for baking, as you know. There was one woman in the Old Parish Road. I was to bring skim milk from the creamery from about twice a week. 6 a gallon, I think she gave me for it. And she had 14 children, and she baked 22 cakes a week. She had no other way of looking after them. You know, that was common in them times. Baking, every woman in every place was a good baker in them days. Like, you know, they had to do it. You were self-sufficient because you had no bread. What I mean, to talk me in the middle of the war, like. I mean, all them things were hard. There was much point in going to town for bread because you may not get it. So what they used to do was they'd get a 4 stone of flour in the creamery, and that'd do them for maybe a fortnight. And the same with the meat. You'd go up there and you'd get the half head there, and you'd get the bacon there, and you'd get the butter there. Now, if small farmers got it on the book, as we'll say, you didn't pay for that maybe till the following October, when you went up there, when you had all your bills cleared. You'd be very lucky to get a cheque in the month of August. Very lucky to get a cheque in the month of August. See, so that were the kind of times that I grew up in, I suppose. There was plenty. There were other things too at that time. We used to be blackberry picking, killing rabbits. So, you know, there was always a bit of money to come in. It might be only a shilling for a rabbit or something, but you could sell the blackberries as well. Blackberries were a big seller in them days as well.
And who would you sell the rabbits or the blackberries to?
The rabbits, the blackberries you tell him in Old Parish, Willie Welsh, he used to buy the blackberries, and Tommy Pottle used to buy both of them bought the rabbits as well. You see, and there was a rabbit factory outside Dungarvan there with Aird, and he used to buy a lot of them. He had about 28 or 29 people working in a rabbit factory during the last war.
And what would
He shipped them.
Kitchen table like?
Yeah, that as well. They used to send them over to the British forces and to the French, and the skin of the rabbits he used to be able to sell them as well. He had a contract probably in England and in France, I think. So it was big business. He had about 28 people working in the factory out there near Kappa. Aird was his name. You know.
How would you catch the rabbits?
There were two ways. You put up a snare. But you could make a snare yourself. You'd get the wire. And you could make a thing to run. There was a swivel on it, and to run, and you would that down, stake it into the ground. And when the rabbit would come along, you had it up about 2 inches off the ground. The rabbit would be hopping, and he'd go into the snare. That'd choke him. And there was the other way then was there'd be fellas going around trapping him. There was a fella here, Stephen Hickey. He had about 200 traps, and he'd stay in houses going around and. He'd clean out a place of rabbits and he'd go on to the next place. To be no bother to Stephen Hickey to have 200 rabbits maybe in the one night, in the Waterford. He was just a master mover and that was the way he worked, you know.
A machine?
He was his own machine, yeah. He had all the rabbits. I remember from Weatherport all the had a way to make a shilling, wasn't it?
And tell us about this graveyard, because this graveyard is very important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very old. We're here at Shannacloon. It's the oldest graveyard in this parish. The first person was buried here was around 1760. Dan Keane was his name, you know. But before that, you're talking about penal times. So no Catholic could be buried in consecrated ground, you see. So therefore, you were coming up to that stage. But it starts, I suppose, really with the church here. The church, I think, was built in Norman times. And in 1850, Cromwell came along here with his trying to knock all the churches as he done, as you know, all over the country. And he came here with Colonel O'Dell from Mount O'Dell outside Dungarvan, because he led the troops in here to knock this church. And when this church here knocked in, they had a job of knocking it actually first, because they said that the first two soldiers went up in the belfry. They got afraid, didn't want to knock it for him. So he came up himself and he started knocking it himself. So that church was levelled in 1850. And it stayed like that then until 1831, when Reverend James Alcock came here. They built a new Church of Ireland for him. Look at the ruins of it out there. But when they built the Church of Ireland here at the time, of course, it's St. Nicholas's parish. The Catholic Church and the Church of Ireland were both St. Nicholas's. There's St. Nicholas as well down the road there, you know. But when they built the Church of Ireland there in 1830 or 1831, around that time, they used all the stones that was in this church. You can see it here now, this is all that's left of it, like, you know, one wall. They took away one wall and the end of it there. So they put it into the building of the new Church of Ireland in the 1830s. And that's done service to the Church of Ireland here in Ring. It was closed about 1945. And then you go about in the neck then, where all Church of Ireland and where all big houses, they put a rate on them. So the Protestants were gone poor at the time. So they levelled some of the churches. And that beautiful church that it was there, the same as the ones you see now in Stradbally or Armore. It was a beautiful church, stained glass windows and all inside it. I was often in it. And a big belfry on it. And so when they made the other thing, the what I call the county council came along and they knocked that and they threw all the fine stones all in it, all along the roads along there. And some of it is left all the time, and the reason it is left was that the local councilmen that were working on it, they found bones on it, so they stopped working, so therefore it's never finished. And it's there as an eyesore since 1961.
And tell us about Alcock.
Yeah, Reverend James Alcock, he came here in 1830. He was born in Waterford City. He came here from St. Olave's in Waterford. He was the son of William Alcock. He was educated in Trinity. And the only reason he came here was because there was only two families, I suppose, of Church of Ireland in Ring at the time, Dr. Graves and Bateman and Helvig. And maybe Haggerty was the third. There was only three families. But the reason for the building of all those churches with the British at the time was to look after their own, to look after the RIC and the Coast Guards. See, that'd be the congregation in here more than anything, to be Coast Guards and RIC men, because there were very few locals Church of Ireland here at the time. So he came here then. He was here until he died in 1893. He gave 60 years. Great service to the poor of the parish. Even in my time, even to the present day, you'll hear about the great work that James Alcock done during the famine here in Ring, like, you know. In 1846, he started up at the Rangogona Relief Committee, and he gathered £130, which was a lot of money in 1846, you see. But when he had the money gathered in, the problem was, how would he distribute it, or what way would he help the fishermen of Ballinagall, because they weren't able to go out fishing. In that time, this parish was independent. It was the parish of Rangogona until 1847. So in 1846, in 1848, there was 3,000 people living in this parish, depending only on fishing, all along the coastline from Ballyharradon up to Seaview, Rathnamanina. And Rathnamanina, it was a big town, and it was the farthest on up there to the west, and that was split in two. Half it was in the parish of Armore, and half it was in the parish of Ring. But then in 1847 or 48, the whole thing was changed, and the authorities in the church, in the Catholic Church, they divided up the parishes in the new again. So they put Ring in with Old Parish, and they put Grange in with Armore. So that was the way it worked. But anyway, to go back to James Alcock, when he had £130 gathered in, see, he was always very upset the fact that there was plenty of fish in the sea, they couldn't be caught. You see, they had nothing left. I mean, you must remember that you were kind of famine before 47 as well. You had 37. There was a bad flu then. There was a lot of people from Ballinagall that died in that flu, and they were buried in a field over in Ballinagall. In my young days, there was a cross there, you know where they were buried. But of course, a farmer came along then and leveled the whole thing out. So there's no sign of that graveyard there anymore. But Alcock anyway then, he read in on the papers. Of course, he was an educated man. He read on the Times, I suppose, the London Times or something, of a scheme that the Quakers had in the Cladda in County Galway. So he got a brainwave then, and he contacted Joseph Strangman in Waterford. Now he was the secretary of the Central Relief Committee for the Quakers in County Waterford. So they came here to Ring, and they had a meeting, and they put a plan together to give loans to the fishermen. There was 49 boats benefited from that scheme, from 10 shillings to £3. And my own great grandfather actually he had 4 men on the crew of a boat named Helvig, and he got £2.7 and 6. And the way you paid back the loan was 6p every month. The Quakers never gave you anything. That was their system of working, which was a good way of working. So there was 49 boats in Ballinagall that benefited of that, and there was 290 households, I think, benefited in other ways, in such a way that every house in Ballinagall at that time got a half stone of yellow meal every week, and they looked after the clothing of them. And anything was needed then, you see, the scheme was set up, and Alcock was the distributor. He used to go to town. He'd go to town maybe twice a week, and every day he'd go to town, he'd bring out a bag of half heads with him, and he'd distribute them amongst the poor. See, so he was a very, very, very generous man. You could tell a lot of stories about Alcock that he used to come down to Anthony's, above here. They were the landlords. They're buried actually there in the vault. And he used to come down then for a supper every evening, you see. But the Anthonys had cows, so that they used to be selling milk to the locals. And this evening he was above there, and this child came in, and he, whatever he had, tuppence for the milk or something like that, so his face was very dirty. And Alcock told him, he said, look, he said, I'll give you 6 months now, he said, if you go down to the river and wash your face. So the young fellow went down to the river and he washed his face. And so the next evening that Alcock was above, there was a half a dozen young fellows come in with their face blackened, looking for the 6 months. But he cocked down, he wasn't going to get any more of that, no more 6 months than that, you know. But he was a generous man, you have to say that about him, you no mistake about it.
And obviously a good organiser as well.
One, he was, yeah. He was the secretary. He lived with it. The funny thing about him was, all his licence he came here in the 1830s until he died in 1893. He stayed with the Catholic landlord, Henry F. Fitzgerald, above in Seaview House, which was kind of unusual. But of course Henry F. Fitzgerald then, he was a real unionist. He was a bad landlord, like, you know. Whatever religion he had, he wasn't any good anyway. He was evicting his tenants and all that thing down through the year. But every day then Alcock would come down from Seaview, and he'd be always watching out to sea, and he'd be always, what I call, seeing was everyone all right. He had a special grow, I'd say, for the fishing people, for fishermen, and the hard work they had to do and all that. But in 1848 then, when everything was kind of organised, and when they were doing fairly well in Ballinagall, they weren't hungry anymore. They had the boats. As I told you, there was 49 boats were looked after, and there was, and all the households were looked after. He used to have pity then on the fishermen every evening, but in their boats. There was no pier in Ballinagall then. So he said in one of his reports was they used to be skinned even. You know, that he hated to look at them. So he decided anyway that he'd get a pier built in Ballinagall. And in 1848, he got the pier built in Ballinagall, and the Quakers gave €1,350 to a pound to build that pier. Now the interesting story about that pier is this. It was built with all local stone. There were 60 men worked on it while they were on it. It took 13 or 14 months to build it. But when you started off in them days, you see, whatever engineer was on it, he decided to put down the first big stone in it. You see, the foundation stone in it. If you put down a big stone in the water, you can never shift it again, like suction. But what they done was then they made cages for the big stones they put down under the foundation. So when the tide came in, then they were able to lift the stone into the position where they wanted it. You see, it was great engineering, wasn't it? But all them stones then, there was 30 men working the pier then in Ballinagall, and there was 30 more of them up in the mountain. The stones were cut above in the mountain. They were measured in Ballinagall, but they were cut above in the mountain, you see, to the right measurement. And when they got them working in Ballinagall, anyway, whatever contractor was there, it was a shilling a week they had. And when they got them working, they cut them to 10 pence a week, 10 pence per week, you see. So anyway, the stones are brought down then from Seaview above the mountain, and they had 2 ginnets bring them down on the sleigh. And when they come down to the pier, then they had a mule there. They took out the ginnets, they put the mule under the sleigh, because the mule will walk wherever a man will walk, and the mule brought the stones out of wherever they wanted them. Amazing story, but that's the way it was. So Alcock was happy then that Ballinagall Pier was, that they had shelter for their boats. They were able to come in and out without, they didn't have the boats ashore anymore or anything like that. So that was one of the greatest things that he done, I'd say, that he had that plan to put a pier in Ballinagall. Then in 1848 again, Lord Stewart of the Dishes, he built the curing house in Helvig at the cost of 2,000. And that was very successful for a long time, from 1848 to about 1852. But he brought a crowd in from Scotland, Edwards and Lister, They were, but there was about 10 in the families. They were like a community. They lived in all over in Helvick at the time. But they used to process, when they were at mackerel fish, they do 100 barrels a day in it. It was a very big factory, you know. I mean, it was, by modern day standards, I mean, they smoked, it was all smoking them days, like you see, but they used to smoke, they used to say 100 barrels a day there, you know. And that was an ideal thing in Helvick, because where it was built, the boats would come in, and there was a platform across like that, and they could land up the fish on it. And the spring water, the river was coming down, so they had the two waters. It was ideal for the curing of the fish. Now that lasted until 1852, and I just tell you how it finished up. Lister and Pickett, there were 3 acres going with the what they call in Helvick, with the fish processing plant, and the Admiralty had gardens there as well. They were all self-sufficient in them times. They were the Coast Guards and RIC, you see, so they had their own garden in them places. So they had their own gardens there. Lister and Pickett then they had their own they had their own potatoes and turnip and all that in it. So they were always there. But one day they went to town, and when they were gone to town, some of the local fellas, they stole some of the turnip. So the following morning when they came back, when they were down walking to the pier in Helvick, there was a row started. So one of Lister's men, he hit a local young fella with a spade, and he died as a result. So they went into court in Dungarvan. His name was Welsh, but his mother swore Queen's evidence. She wanted the what I call to stay for the employment in the parish. But when the court was over, the Scotchman never came out to Helvick after that, so that closed the factory in 1852. So shin away.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool.
And just because the famine,
Yeah.
was it were the landlords anyway, you know, decent to the people, or was this area very badly hit?
It was very badly hit, but when you think of the population that was here, and there were only 7 or 8 towns here at that time. There was 3,000 people depending on the fishing industry. So I mean,
It's a huge population.
it was a huge population, like, you know. I mean, you couldn't. They're not much longer than 1,000 here today, and a bigger parish, like, but it's a ringing old parish. So I mean, yeah, we were overpopulated, I suppose, definitely all over Ireland during the famine, like, you know. And of course they depended on the potato, and that was their downfall. When the paid blight came in 1845, that was the start of that, like you see. So in 1846 then, because you'll be often wondering how did Orcock start off in 1846, which that's why he started his own committee here to gather the money to do something for the poor people. You know, so I know, I really, I suppose, at the end of the day, to me, landlords weren't really any good, because you were under the umbrella the whole time. You had to pay the rent, and you know, you got nothing for it. Like, I mean, the houses down in Ballinagall at the time of the famine, they were no more than barns. You couldn't call them houses. There were no chimneys in the most of them, and there was 140 houses at least, there if not more. You know, so all them communities all over the country, they were the same that time. Like, you know, there was no chimney in them. The smoke went up through the centre. There was only 1 bedroom in them. You know, so it was really tough times. Really tough times.
Disaster waiting to happen.
Yes. Well, sure, it did happen, and it would have happened here in the big way, only for Orcock. I mean, and I mean, if the village of Ballinagall at the time was wiped out, we'd say, only for it coming, there wouldn't be one of Irish in this parish today, because he saved that community. They were all Irish speakers down through the years, and so for that's another thing why he should be well remembered for. You know, and as well as that, then he had soup kitchens as well. He had a soup kitchen in Luscombe in Old Parish, and one in Ballinmacartan in Old Parish. They cost £10 each for soup to make soup kitchens. So he had 2 of them up there.
And Nicholas, could you say just a little bit about the revival of the Irish language, like through the Irish college, you know?
Yeah. complicated kind of a story. They started the secondary school here back around 1905, I think it was, and there was maybe 30 pupils in it. But they got it very hard to go off the ground because the priest, our parish priest was here at the time, Father McCann. He was anti-Irish. He didn't want nothing at all to do with the Irish language. He even wrote to the bishop objecting to starting the secondary school in Ring. But the next thing was Bishop Sheehan in Waterford at the time. He sent £10 for the committee for the secondary school to start here. So he kind of ignored Father McCann. But anyhow, when it was opened and when the pupils were going to the school, Father McCann went around toward the houses in Ballinagall and he told them, whatever you do, don't send your children to a super school. Now he look at the mentality that man had. He was thinking of the people that got the soup during the famine from the Quakers. So to him that was an awful sin. But he still thought of it, 50 years later. You know, so the language always has an uphill battle in them days. You know, sure, you know, with Cundra and Gaeling and it was founded in 1893, sure, and everything they done was banned by the British government. Even coming Niochlás Ó'Griofán was banned. You know, so anyone to do with anything Irish, it was an uphill battle the whole time, and you know, they saved it, I suppose, and that's about all. You know, but there wouldn't be any word of English in this parish back around 1900, like it wouldn't. There had only one language, you see.
Well, it's a success story now, isn't it, really?
Oh yes, it's a success story now. So they're changing completely now with Gael schools all over the country and all of that, you know. Well, the college in Ring, I suppose, played its part as a boarding school down through the years there, you see. But then when I was going to school here in Ring in the 40s, in the school, you done the medium of Irish, but there's more Irish spoken in Ring today now. In my time going to school, there wasn't much Irish being spoken. No.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you see, there was always bitterness, you see. One half of this parish, we're always against the language. It was only from here over to Helvig that was nationally minded. Even if you look at the records of the old IRA when there was formed here in Ring back in 1918, whenever it was, there was only 3 or 4 on that side of the parish because they were the farmers, you see. And there could be 40 from this side of the parish, like. And they had nothing. They were as poor as Job. All they had. But they had graw for their language and they had graw for their religion. They knew what they were. They knew what it was to be an Irishman, and they knew what hardship they had got and their parents before them, down through the years under British rule, like, you see. So that is the difference, and that's the thing to debate on another day, like, you know.
And Niochlás, could you say a little bit about the Niochlás Ó'Griofán?
Niochlás Ó'Griofán, the Shannon singer.
Yes.
Yeah, he went to school in my time. Niochlás, as you know, Niochlás won the Grattan 3 years in a row. They had a great choir in Ring when I was going to school, but that was all in Latin. And Niochlás Ó'Griofán and his sister Kate, Latin Straper, and I just can't think, Alice Tobin, his sister, Mary Condon and Helvig, and then it was a good choir, I'd say, you'd hear any place in Ireland, and that was in Latin. Because, as you know yourself, until the 1960s, it was Latin Mass, you see. The only thing you'd hear at Mass is the priest would be giving the sermon. That'd be in English, all right. No Irish. No Irish.
And like, would you be in his company singing when he was singing?
No, I wasn't able to sing, and even that he's a far-out relation of mine. No, he wasn't, yeah. Well, of course, there was the mighty tradition of singing in Ballinagall in history, because then Bernie O'Neill one time wrote a lovely article on the Nagle family in Ballinagall. They were musical. And he said in it about Paddy Nagle, he came from a village, he said, of talented people. And I think that sums it up, really. Because every second house in Ballinagall, they were musical and they were singers, there was everything in it. See, they were together, close-knit. There might only be one melodian in the village, but they'd be dancing 6 nights of the week. The only night the melodian wouldn't be pulled out was Saturday night, because you had to get ready for Mass on a Sunday. And that happened in the 1940s, you know.
And then just to come right up fairly modern times, the Clancys.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a bit of when they came in, I suppose they probably gave the place a shot in the arm, did they?
Well, I don't know. I suppose really they didn't. They lived here all right, but sure, the Clancys weren't international. They were more known in America than places. They hadn't much to do with singing around here or anything like. They'd have concerts all right, but sure, they were never a concert here with them.
They were just celebrities, didn't they?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, yes. I didn't do any harm coming in here by any means, but I'm only just saying, like, I mean, they were international, now they'd been mostly in America. They spent most of their time, sure. When they came here, they were getting old.
And just to finish off, because how did you become interested in all this history stuff?
Well, when I was growing up at home, you see, there'd be shenachas every night at the fireplace. We had no place else to go. You see, my father, he was a great historian himself, and then there'd be always 3 or 4 of the neighbours come in, and one thing from another would lead to this and that, like, And then I suppose I was interested in history as well, because I had an uncle, Johnny Graves, who was one of the 2 ringmen who fought in the GPO in 1916. So I suppose the history was kind of in it from my father's side, because he was related to the Morrisseys, and they were always great. And genealogy and all that, they were noted for it, like, My father was a genius on the weather. The fishermen would be waiting for him at Mass every Sunday. He could tell the weather for a week. They're amazing science, unbelievable. But he'd be always right though.
And what was what kind of things would he be looking at?
He'd be looking at, the first thing it'd be the tides. Then he'd be looking at the moon. And he'd be looking at the moon, and one he used to always, his favourite was to watch the sun in the evening. That the wind was following the sun in the evening if you wanted fine weather.
Okay, because we'll stop there because this is gone. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Niochlás, you were saying about your father being the weather forecast man for this area.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's a great story. Tell us that again. Sorry.
The story, but he had several different times. So often I know he'd be. The wind was what I call was the main one. The way the winds would be moving around and changing during the night. Too often I heard him saying the wind changed twice last night. He'd hear it with his ears inside in the bed. You see, he'd know it on the chimney. You see, he could get it on that. But his main, what I call then, would be the tides. The froth going out from the cliff, the foam going out from the cliff and all that. The further out the foam would go, the worse the storm would be. And then if it was too clear, if we could see the hook, that was a real bad sign altogether. You could see the hook clear. And if there was fog at sea, you get fine weather. And then you had the birds. They'd be doing different. If you watch the birds again, they're great for signs as well, like, So he had every one of them perfected to perfection.
And so all the fishermen used to...
They'd be watching for him to go out at sea, because in the olden days they had no sign. They were depending on, they had no technology of any kind. So he was up in sea view, and he had a view of all of the coastline, of Mugger's Bay, so he'd know everything about it. He'd know to the day. And even down there in Ballyvile, I'd be watching it myself today all the time. If the sun shines into that clicking inlet down in Ballyvile, you're sure to get real fine weather, and that happens all the time. I'd be always watching it. I can see it from my own door, so I know that's it. But he had more signs than that now. I haven't forgotten it. He had. Even I'll tell you another interesting one now. A P&T pole was outside on the road where I lived, and in right fine weather, it'd be singing the same as a tin whistle would. You see, so there must be a fella calling to our place, and he was always come to see was that pole whistling. That was a sign of real fine weather, And I came across a book one time, and I saw what was the reason for it. The pole was up on a stone, and when the weather had begun to soften, the stone it'd get light and to make the pole sing. It was amazing, wasn't it? But it was the real sign of the weather. Yes, but it was true though. It was true.
Speaking of interesting stories like that,
yeah.
would people around this area in the old days, would they have had a lot of beliefs in things like we say, obviously we say the Catholic Church, we say like St. Bridget's Day and all
they
that
had
kind of
Pattern Day,
Yeah, what kind of ones would you remember?
Well, I remember the Pattern Day here. It was a 3-day event that time. St. Nicholas of the Pattern Saint of Ring. We'd be up from school, and there'd be rosaries, and there'd be music and all. There'd be one big day. Then there'd be 5 or 6 priests saying mass on the Pattern Day, and to start the day before and to finish the day after. You know, but the whole parish, there could be whatever number of people in the parish. There wouldn't be a house in the parish, but there would be represented at that.
Some of those kind of Shanakees that used to come around to the house.
Yeah.
Would they tell stories of the banshees and all that?
Oh, you would often hear them. Everyone had them that time. They're frightening. That was no problem to tell stories about the banshee or anything like that, you know. But you see, in them days, it was easy. And that is the prime fellas. They'd be trying to frighten children the way they come home at night before 12 o'clock. Because no matter what happened in them days, you'd never go out between 12 and 2. You'd have to let 2 o'clock go if you were going someplace. You'd never go. If you were gone, you'd have to go before 12. They had stories like that, you see. But
what would happen between 12 and 2?
Dead out of night. Dead out of night, I think it was. They feared that, you know.
Because that was the time of what? The dead would come?
The spirits would be appearing, or they'd see something that would frighten them. But once it's after dawn, then after 2, it was all kind of gone. No, that'd be my explanation, but I could be wrong. But
and then what about things like the fairies?
No, none of them there in my time anyway, I can tell you that.
There wasn't such a big thing about the fairies then?
No, not, well, sure, they had ordinary stories, but you know, they had them on school books that time, like. You know, the lists and all, there are a few lists around here, fairy forts as they call them, you know, there's a few of them around here, but I think they're gone again now too, they're done away with, you know. It's a pity, but that's what happened, you know, they got
and what about things like, you know, like wells that were for different illnesses and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, there's a well down the road at St. Nicholas as well. The most of the holy wells long ago were for curing skin disease or sore eyes. You know, a lot of that could be in the water. It could be right. I wouldn't say against it at all, you know. But the people believed in them times anyway. Like, you know, they had the belief, you see, and that's the thing. Yeah. Once you believe in the thing, you convince yourself that it's right, I suppose, wouldn't you?
The mind is very powerful.
Oh yeah, it is. It's very tricky. Mm-hmm. You must control it, that's what you don't control you.
Well, Nicholas, just to finish off, you were mentioned about 1916, so could you just tell us a little bit about this area's connection to 1916?
Yeah, there were 2 men from this parish, John Graves and Willie Regan, that were in the GPO in 1916. And to how they were there, Dungarvan Ó'Griofán, he was the last Governor General of this country actually. He took 9 from Ring, young fellas of 14, to serve their time in his hardware shop in Maynooth. So when 1916 came in, he picked his own team. He picked a team of 15 to go to Dublin to the GPO. Because he cycled to Dublin on Easter Monday, he didn't know the rising was on. So, and he was in his 50s at that time, and he had 6 small children. He was a marvellous man, Dungarvan Ó'Griofán. So he came back to Maynooth and he told him the rising was on. So they got ready that evening anyway. So the 2 ringmen were part of the 16. So he went up for they marched down the street in Maynooth, up to Maynooth College. And they wanted to be knighted by the president of Maynooth. And he didn't want to do it. But one of the Maynooth fellas, I think he took out a revolver and he got kind of afraid. So they were anointed before they left Maynooth. But they walked down from the canal, the railway line, from Maynooth to Dublin, which is 16 miles, in hobnailed boots, I suppose, with their guns on their back, and they had 3 pikes as well. And they had only school bags with them, with very little to eat on it. And they arrived at the GPO on Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock. So they went into the GPO. They were welcomed there by Pierce and Connolly. They got orders then on Wednesday to go to the hotel. There was an ambush with British soldiers in one of the hotels there anyway. But when the ambush was over anyway, they couldn't get back into the GPO. So Johnny Regan and a fellow by the name of Per Weaver, they got lost in Dublin that Wednesday night because the Helge had bombed the GPO on Wednesday, you see. So everything was up in a heap. You didn't know where you were going. They were told do the best you can for yourself to get out, you see, and all that. But they marched back to Maynooth again, and himself and Weaver. And when they came back to Maynooth, there was another one of the Maynooth men there. So they went into a safe house in Maynooth. And they weren't long inside there when the parish priest came in. And next thing was the parish priest went away and the RIC came in and arrested him. And Per Weaver always said that it was the parish priest in Maynooth was the cause they were being arrested. But they were put into a military lorry. They were brought up first to O'Buchla's shop. They were to be shot up against the wall, but the big crowd gathered, so nothing happened. So they put them into a military lorry and they handcuffed the three of them together. And they were brought from Naas to the Curragh, Newbridge, and from that to Dublin, to not Kilmainham, the one before Kilmainham. They were kept in Kilmainham anyway until the 13th of May, and on the 13th of May Connolly was shot, and on the 15th of May Johnny Graves and his comrades went into the GPO. Were in Kilmainham, they were to be shot, but it was stopped on the 13th, and he was sentenced to 6 months hard labour on the 15th. So I'd have to tell you about the story about his pension. He applied for his pension then when he ended up being a guard of Síochána man, and when he couldn't apply for his pension then because he didn't join the Free State. He played no part in the Civil War. So when 1924, if you were in the Free State, you got your pension. But in 1932, then when Dave got into power, the rule was changed. So that was the first time that Republicans and common man could apply for a pension. So he applied for his pension in 1934, and he didn't get his pension until 1949. It's only £20 a year, I think it was. And he didn't get his medal until 1951. His comrade Willie Regan, who was 5 days in the GPO, was cut a day in his pension for being in the GPO.
And did they get the back money?
No way in the world back money, but there were no talking back money then. You're talking about fucking modern day politicians. No back money then. Yeah.
And it's willed and buried here?
No, but we're standing alongside all the Regans are buried. Willie Regan's parents and all, they're buried here alongside me.
Okay.
Yeah.
This would have been the family graveyard?
Toad for the Regan area, and for the graves, when the graves are buried up above. There are probably some buried here that don't know about because they're here from 1776, so they have to be buried here, I'd say. But there's no record of them. As you know, there were no records kept of anyone being buried in any graveyard here. No.
Well, obviously the people of Ring and this area would be very proud of the fact that two of their own were involved.
Well, would you believe it now? You mightn't believe this. Hardly anybody in Ring knew that they were in the GPO until the 1916 commemorations came out. Yeah. There's people here that never heard of it. That they were, of course, they were gone away, you see. Johnny Graves was in Killarney and Willie Regan was in Wexford. That's where Willie Regan is actually buried in St. Ivor Cemetery in Wexford, you know. So that's about it. Yeah, and I put the story there I have to tell you, I suppose, about Jim Haggerty, the Church of Ireland man buried there. And when he was buried here in early 1900, there was no one to bring out the coffin, the corpse. So the minister came out anyway, and he asked for 3 or 4 fellas to go into the church to bring out the coffin. So there was 4 fellas volunteered to bring out the coffin. I mean, if they did, the parish priest tackled them a week after, and they had to go down to the bishop to get absolution from here.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I could name, so one of them I know was Bateman. I have the names forgotten the rest of them. You know,
because they went into a Protestant church?
They went into a Protestant church. That was that way until the 1940s in my time. Oh Jesus, you couldn't go near a Protestant church in them time.
You're going to hell.
Now, there's an unusual story there about Dr. Graves. I'll tell you that. he was great friends with James Orchard. They always worked together, the two. Dr. Graves, he was a medical doctor here from 1840 to 1901. You see, now he was married to a Catholic, Mary Anthony, and he had 4 sons. You see, and in the 1870s then, the Anthonys were proud landlords, you see, stock, even if they were Catholics. That's their vault there. And she wanted the sons to go into the bank, but in them days, you couldn't go into the bank unless you were Church of Ireland. You see, that happened here until 1922 or 23. That no Catholic could be accepted into the banks. You see, but anyway, there was 2 of his family Protestants and there was 2 of them Catholics. But anyway, one fellow, Michael Graves, he buried over there. He was 8 years of age now. So she got Orchard to give him instructions in the Church of Ireland, but he didn't want to turn. You see, he wanted to stay Catholic. You see, but anyway, when he came down to baptise him, he couldn't be found. And the following morning they found him and he was dead inside the grandfather's clock. And he's buried there with his grandfather was Chaplain Graves, he was Church of Ireland. And he was a Catholic, he was put in with him. And then Richard Graves, when he died, he was put in there as well, and his wife was a Catholic. So there's Catholics and Protestants buried in the one grave, which is kind of unusual, I think. Yeah, it's kind of unusual, you know. But to tell you that them fellas, like Dr. Graves and Orchard, their religion didn't bother them at all. I mean, what they done for the people, you see. I mean, Dr. Graves never got paid for anti-Catholic. They couldn't pay him, like, you know. So actually, the Board of Health wanted to get rid of him when he was 84 years of age. They said he was too old for being a doctor, and he was as deaf as a beetle. He used to have a big horn going around. You'd have to shout into the horn to tell him what was wrong with you. But anyway, they bought a new doctor here then, Dr. Train. He came from Tipperary. They built a dispensary for him. But the people in Ring wouldn't accept Dr. Crane. So there was a petition from here, went in to the health board in Dungarvan, and they had a big list of things praising Dr. Graves and how he knew all their ailments and he knew all their people and everything. They wouldn't accept Dr. Crane, so Dr. Graves stayed here until he died in 1901 at 88 years of age. He was still the doctor in Ring.
That's great.
To do the facing, huh?
Niochlás, thanks very much.
Okay.
I will stop.
Yeah, I shot of it.
The priest was escaping from Cromwell. He was supposed to go out that window. There's no Protestant can go out that window. You have to be Catholic. We used to go in now through when we go to school. Everyone would be saying that's the way you would prove it. And you'd be amazed that you would never think a fella go through that window. And youngsters would anyway. Often I went out. I don't know where I go out there today though. That grave there has belonged to the Reagans. Willie Reagan wasn't the GPO in 1916.
Good.
That's the grave.
Which battalion was he in?
Maynooth battalion, down in O'Buchla. They were working at O'Buchla in Maynooth.
And they didn't really come into town then, did they?
No, they left Maynooth. They left Maynooth, 15 of them in a group, and they marched to Dublin on Easter Monday evening.
Yeah.
They left Maynooth at 6 o'clock in the evening, and they arrived above the GPO at 6 o'clock the following morning, 16 miles. But nothing in their back, only the school bag and a couple of sandwiches. And when they went into the GPO, they got fish sandwiches from James Connolly.
That's cool.
Oh, it's a great story. And my uncle did. He never took any part in the Civil War. He was a very straight man. He was the head of the posse and everything. He applied for his pension. If you were in the Free State, you got a pension in 1924. But if you weren't in the Free State, you couldn't apply for it at all. You see. So when Dave got into power in 1932 then, he changed the rule in 34. And that was the first time Republicans and coming along could apply for a pension. Now my uncle, who was in the GPO, 6 months in prison in Mountjoy next door to De Valera, he applied for his pension from Tala in County Waterford, where he was a guard, in 1934. He didn't get the pension until 1949. Twelve even £20 a year.
Oh my God.
And he didn't get the medal out of the GPO till 1951. And they're on display inside the museum in Dungarvan.
That's disgraceful.
Oh, it was worse.
And was that because he wasn't feeling
It was. And what happened was, Major Patrick Colgan, one of the 15 that marched with him to Maynooth, he was the head of the pension board for the Free State, and he didn't want to give out and tell the Maynooth fellas that didn't turn Free Stater.
That's terrible.
No, it was unbelievable. It's unbelievable, yeah. Unbelievable. But if you're in the museum in Dungarvan now, you can have a look for it. You'll see the story in there.